Hi, team. Today I wanted to share a couple of things with you that might be helpful as we're working with our students with processing issues. These are things that I've learned through years of both having good experiences and also of making some mistakes. And things I've learned make a very big difference in our ability to work effectively with these students. So I want to talk specifically about how to work with when our students are making inappropriate remarks or are needing to redirect their conversations for one reason or another. So there's a couple things I want us to think about first and foremost. So when we think about it, the easy way to kind of go with these conversations is, let's say we have some students going and they're beginning to get inappropriate with their conversations, right? And that could mean they're starting to talk and glorify past drug use. It is something misogynistic or racist, or they are saying things which are disrespectful to other people. So we might come and say, hey guys, can we redirect this conversation, please? So as a prompt to say, this is going in a direction that's not working, please change it. Or we could make some kind of a comment like, guys, this is inappropriate. Or guys, let's keep it appropriate, please. And we can do this in a really friendly way and just kind of help them say, hey, I need you to change this. This is falling in the category of inappropriate. These are natural things for us to want to do under these circumstances. I've also learned that these actually are not very helpful approaches to this particular problem with our students for a number of reasons why. First, let's keep in mind that one of the common factors is that most of our students have one or several major processing issues. And let's think about some of our processing issues for a moment. Let's think about the not getting it issue, right? So part of what's going on for someone who has the not getting it processing issue is that they have difficulty understanding abstract things and also intangible factors. So, for example, something that's an intangible factor is why it's okay to stand up and scream and shout at a basketball game, but why you wouldn't want to do this if you were in court. Now, that's an extreme example. I think most of our students might be able to get that, but not necessarily all of them. There are times, for understanding when you might disclose certain things and when you won't. Again, that's intangible. They also have difficulty connecting the dots. They might be able to see all the little pieces, but they're not necessarily sure how A leads to B, leads to C, leads to D, or how, hey, this thing I saw in this context can inform me in this other context, even though it's not exactly the same. As I'm saying this out loud, I'm thinking that pretty much describes everyone on my caseload right there. Then when we take a look at our students who are socially struggling, there's a lot of reasons why. It can be because they're not getting it. It can be because they have insecure attachments or things along those lines. And it can be that a lot of what they're doing is looking for what is the least common denominator. I don't necessarily understand how to interact with my peers, but it's very easy. I've learned, anyone can learn, that you can get along with someone so long as you never ask them to change and you support them in their negative emotions and in their negative behaviors, because there's something very gratifying about someone who says, you're totally in the right, just go ahead and blow up the way you're going to blow up. There's also the stress sensitivity issue, right? So one of the things we have to keep in mind is a lot of these socially inappropriate behaviors are a result of someone who is having some kind of an emotional state and doesn't know how to handle it more effectively. And therefore, they're handling it the way they know how to handle it. And it's a way that is having a negative impact on others, is disrespectful, or whatever it may be. Also, something to keep in mind is that people can definitely act out in ways that are socially inappropriate when they're under sensory overload. So as we begin to look at these, we're realizing there's a lot of different factors that can go into why one of our students might be saying or doing something that needs redirection or that is socially inappropriate. But let's keep in mind, why do those approaches sometimes fall apart? Well, think about this. The word inappropriate itself is actually not a processing friendly word. How do you know if something's appropriate? Even, for example, if you and I were to go to another country, we would find that we would probably make a lot of social mistakes because there's a lot of aspects of the social context that we have not learned. For example, if you were to go to China, do you know how close to stand to someone? Do you know when to bow and when not to bow? Do you know where to put your hands when you're bowing and to whom? Do you know to not make the mistake of going into someone's house and saying, wow, that's a really nice picture there. I really like it. And you understand why that's going to cause a social problem. There's all different parts of the context we don't understand. And the context changes from place to place. So this idea of appropriate or inappropriate seems to imply that we just kind of pick up on those things. Well, our students don't. So this is an abstract word. Again, it requires an understanding of context that they have difficulty even perceiving, let alone processing. And we do have to recognize that, especially for our rigid, concrete thinkers, the concept of appropriate is at least partially subjective in that it can change from time to time, or that they're saying, well, I say this around other people, I say the F bomb all the time, and they don't have a problem with it. So how can you say that it's a word that I can't use, right? So next is to think about this idea of redirecting. Let's go ahead and redirect this conversation. Well, there's a couple things that if I have processing issues, I'm going to genuinely struggle with. One of the questions would be, well, why does this need redirection? Why is this a problem? How is this somehow bad? I'm thinking of a conversation I had with a student the other day where they're saying, I don't know why it's a problem for anyone, that it's just vent that I hate telos so much. How is this a bad thing? Am I not allowed to express my feelings? Don't we live in a country where we have the First Amendment, the freedom of speech? Um, and so the questions, well, wait, why is it sometimes not necessarily the right thing just to say exactly what I'm thinking and exactly how I'm feeling and exactly how I'm experiencing it? Then the second question that they may not really understand is, well, if I'm not going to be saying it the way I'm saying it and doing what I'm doing, well, where exactly am I supposed to redirect this? And how is that all connected to what I'm feeling? One of the things we have to recognize is that simply telling our students to change the subject often feels like an arbitrary thing from their point of view. They're saying, well, wait, I'm talking about this because this is what I'm thinking about. This is what I'm feeling. And you're saying I need to talk about something else. Well, it has nothing to do with what I'm thinking and feeling. So, how can I redirect this conversation where it is related to what it is I'm trying to work through right now, but is not falling into that category of something that's inappropriate because it's having a negative impact on my circumstance, or it's simply just ramping me up negatively? And also, okay, so, but how? Because when we think about this, our conversations are an outward expression of something going on inside of us. At Telos, we talk about big ticket items all the time, right? How we are trying very hard not to just to hack away at the branches, but to really look at the roots of a situation. Well, that also applies to inappropriate conversations. The inappropriate conversation itself is a branch that has roots inside the student at that moment, something they're thinking, they're feeling, they're perceiving, they're caught up on. And that's the thing that they need help with, not necessarily the resulting branch of the inappropriate conversation. So remember, for pretty much all of our students, those three questions: why should I redirect? Where should I redirect? And how can I redirect? They probably don't know the answer to at least one of those three. And there's a very good chance that they actually don't know the answer to all three of them. So it can be pretty much, we can accidentally fall into the position of telling them, I want you to do something that you don't know why, where, or how to do, and have not been successful in doing before. Please go do it. We, we need to do a little bit better than that. So what can we do instead? Well, first and foremost, it's always a good idea to make sure that we are helping things go right. So as we enter into circumstances where we know a student tends to struggle with the way that they behave socially, we have the opportunity to use parts of the processing approach, forecasting and front loading. Now, we need to be careful that we don't use this in a behavioral drift sort of way, saying, now every time you go over to apartment B, you always start dropping F-bombs, and if you do that, I'm going to make sure you get your phone taken away. That is very much a behavioral misinterpretation of what forecasting would look like. To say, hey, I know you're going to be going over to apartment B, and I know you really like being there. I know that one of the things you enjoy about it is that you have friends there who seem to understand how you're feeling. And sometimes that can be you guys, instead of supporting each other, really actually just ramping each other up with your negative feelings. Apartment B has asked us to make sure that if you're going to come, that we need to make sure that you are helping be a positive influence. It's not that you can't talk about your struggles, but that you need to talk about them productively. So what I wanted to do is check in with you and see, where's your mindset? How are you feeling? Are you going over with the need for some support? And how can you approach that in a way where you're going to make sure that as you try to talk through what you're feeling with your friends, that it's something that's actually productive rather than just kind of pulling each other down in those negative emotions. So again, I just kind of said it all in one big block of words. I would not do that. I'd break it up and have each of those in a little bit of a conversation with them at a time. But that's one way that you could front load with a student going into a circumstance where you know they tend to struggle socially. Um, then from there, in the moment, there's a couple of great tools that we have. For example, the consultant pattern. So, hey, right now it seems like you guys are just all feeling just really, really upset about this boundary or about this part of the program or whatever it may be. You know what's going on with you guys right now? Help me understand, because it seems like you're just really unhappy and you're not sure how to get feeling better. Or it can be like, right now you seem to be like really excited about the idea of drugs. Help me understand what's going on with you right now. Then from there are other processing. Again, you can use the rest of the consultant pattern to go the way through, which helps them build their awareness of like, oh, well, I'm not sure. Well, let's kind of dig into that. Here's kind of what I'm noticing. Are you noticing that? And okay, wow, you're noticing that you're really kind of stuck in romanticizing past drug use. Okay. Well, what can people do about that? What can we do when we find ourselves in that spot? Do you have some ideas? Okay, let me hear your ideas. All right, I have some thoughts about it too. Are you interested in hearing them? Okay. Well, with all of these, what do you want to choose to do? Where do you want to go with this? Um, and if they're saying, nope, I just want to sit right here and talk about smoking crack, then we can say, okay, well, the difficult thing for me is that that tends to be something which, one, I know is not healthy for you in your recovery, but it tends to become then a trigger for other students as well. And I can't allow that to happen. So if that's the way you want to handle this emotion right now, I'm going to have to ask you to go back to apartment A. So, or something along those lines. But ideally, we're doing a lot of helping them figure out a way that they can understand their circumstance and redirect. But we're using the consultant pattern to help them figure that out rather than using a larger, more abstract word that they may not understand. Also, keep in mind there are elements of the processing approach that we want to make sure that we're using. We want to break it down. Again, if they have the not getting it processing issue, there's a lot of little pieces that they might not be connecting. We can ask questions to help connect those pieces. It can be things of saying, I'm wondering when you're expressing this, I'm wondering if you notice how it seems to impact your friend over here and the way he's thinking and feeling. What do you notice about that? And is that something? What do you notice he tends to do when he gets into that mindset? Slowing things down, making sure that we're not coming at them and saying, you have to stop this right now. Sometimes by trying to win the battle too quickly, that's what causes us to lose it. Giving them choices and be creative. Again, they don't know how to handle these feelings. Helping them explore different ways that they can go about it and helping them feel like they've got options that will actually work for them is important. But also mind the funnel, recognizing that if they're really overwhelmed or if they're feeling publicly criticized or whatever it may be, there's a lot of those other aspects like the arm around the shoulder, being able to take some time aside, talk with them afterwards, give them some time to cool down and then come back to it and say, hey, let's talk about this situation. Things along those lines, all of them can be very helpful. So hopefully this has spurred some thought on your part. Hopefully this will spur some conversation between you guys and some experimentation over your next couple of shifts to see where we can go to help our students really begin to process rather than getting stuck in the concept of appropriate versus inappropriate or redirecting versus staying rigidly stuck with where they are. So again, our overarching goals here are to help our students increase their awareness of their emotional state, which is driving their inappropriate actions. Help them to seek to meet their emotional needs in a more adaptive way, to help them to increase their awareness of the impact of their decisions, how they're handling that, both on their surroundings, but also on themselves, and to help them to find good options for interacting with their surroundings, even with the feelings that they're currently carrying around inside. I look forward to having further conversations with all of you about this and seeing how we all continue to grow in doing this with our students.